What the fuck?
Alright, let's see what you got.
So Happy Death Day to You, definitely all over the place in terms of tone. It's happy, it's suspenseful, it's sad, it's funny. But yeah, they are definitely trying to grasp at every single tone that they can in this movie.
Yeah, like the first one was here, they upped ante to the second one here. Like, it's so different from the first one for sure. I mean, there were so many things that happened in this movie that I absolutely loved. The music was fantastic in this movie.
Bear McCreary did the score, and he definitely harnessed his Alan Silvestri in this one. I could have sworn it was Alan Silvestri, but Bear McCreary of BSG and Walking Dead fame. But yeah, speaking of Alan Silvestri, where the first movie was very much like Groundhog Day, which they mentioned in the first movie, this one is very much like Back to the Future, at least timey-wimey. It almost felt like a time travel movie, but not a time travel movie. It was very Community in the 6 different timelines. This is truly the darkest timeline. But yeah, definitely all over the place, to the point where I couldn't predict what was going to happen or where we were going with it.
And it's just a very interesting take that they took somehow and was like, you know what, we're going to do this for the second one, where to come out of the first one. It's like very interesting that they chose the way that they picked for this movie to go. But I really, really liked it. I enjoyed it. I laughed. I cried. It was all over the place. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, I was so into it, and I was just like, oh my God, there's so much stuff happening. And then when you think that they're gonna be, then boom, they come out with something else, and you're just like, what just happened? Good montages, good use of songs as well, and cuts. The way that they put this movie together added to the comedic side of things. And then other than that, yeah, it was heartwarming as well. Little slower when those heartwarming moments came up, but at the same time, they got you right back with the comedy and then some of the action too. You could tell they kind of kicked up the budget a little bit. A little bit. Yeah. I will say though that there are certain things that happened in the movie that kind of took away from the aspect of other stuff that happened in the movie. So they kind of like wanted you to gear towards like the way that the first movie was, but then also be more grand than the first one was at the same time. So there was a lot of times where I'm just like, wait, why? Just stick with something else. Just stick with what you were doing first, and just don't go back to that. Like, okay. They do start going one way, and then they completely get on a new trajectory, and I kind of want to see how that other trajectory was going to go, because they kind of open it up and then they just shift a different way, and I'm like, oh, but I wanted to see how that whole thing was going to go. And that's why it was hard to predict, because I would start thinking, oh, they're going to do this, and then they did something completely different. But however, even though that those certain parts were kind of like, okay, whatever, that the good outweighed more so of the bad stuff that I didn't like about the movie. And so for this movie, I think that I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. And I was, at one point I was like, oh, it's definitely a 4.5. Then things happened that kind of knocked it down to a 4.25 for me. But then it kind of brought it back as well. Especially stay till the mid-credits. There is an extra scene there. So make sure you see that. But because of that, and the ending, like, it pushed it back up to 4.5 for me. So definitely check out Happy Death Day to You. And you actually can see this movie without going back and seeing the first one, but I recommend you go back and watch the first one. I feel like in some way you would probably enjoy it more if you didn't watch the first one, if you go see this movie on its own. However, the first one is good too, so you should watch that anyways. The first one does feel like a different kind of movie, and then this one feels like its own movie. So they didn't retread the narrative, they kind of jumped around it, as you see in the trailers, but the whole idea is completely different than the goals that they're trying to do in the first movie. So with that, it does kind of go into uncharted territory, which was cool. So thank you guys for watching our non-spoiler review of Happy Death Day to You. Let us know what you guys thought in the comments below. You can also like and subscribe. And do the thing on our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, start out. All the social networking gin joints, you know where they are. Cake the party, fuel the party, keep the party going on a Patreon, get us to where we need to go. Thank you guys so much, and as always, now it's time to say goodbye. This party is over. Bye. Bye.